it's one word Nintendo fanboys refuse to learn, that word is accountability. No, I'm not kidding. Every single piece of criticism levied at Nintendo these past few weeks has been dismissed, brushed aside, pushed away, because apparently the only thing that these people, or dare I even say adults, want to do is in fact to be happy. Now look, I get it. Nintendo seems to be the only thing that lets you finally feel something that you haven't felt since you were a child. However, though, that doesn't mean that you can sit there and act like a child on the internet trying to defend a multi-billion-dollar corporation literally selling you possibly one of the most half-baked devices out right now in order to play video games, while at the same time also charging you more money and nickel and diming your literal nostalgia. But you see, I'm not the only one that caught this directly. It turns out the boys at Digital Foundry did a 2-hour video recapping what they saw with the Nintendo Switch 2, and when they post this one clip on Twitter, it apparently set the internet world on fire. Digital Foundry tweeted this out: 2 weeks in the making. Here's our 2-hour review for Nintendo Switch 2. It's our most detailed hardware test yet. We're impressed with the system, but the display is a clear disappointment. Now here's the thing, Digital Foundry aren't the only ones that have talked about the display before. It has been some other websites as well saying, hey, it's not as good. It could have better nits for actual HDR display. It's still an LCD. Honestly, like I said before, personally, this device should have been $399 and had an OLED panel as well, simply because my Switch OLED has the OLED screen as well, and it is a clear difference, especially when compared to my Steam Deck, which is an LCD panel. That's the thing. If you're going to have a premium product for a premium price, like $400 to $500, it should at least have the things part of it that make it a premium product. The thing is, though, it's not just the panel they were disappointed with. In fact, Digital Foundry put a clip of their 2-hour preview in this tweet, and here is what they had to say.
The problem with Switch 2 is that the response time of the pixels, or at least the way it's being driven, is not adequate. And as a result, you actually do see a lot of sort of trails, blur on things. So if you're playing, say, a side-scrolling 2D platform game, like imagine you're playing Sonic on there, Sonic Mania, you got this checkerboard field, you've got a lot of contrasting colors. As it moves, the image essentially leaves behind. If you film at, say, 240 frames per second for like a slow motion video, you essentially get 4 individual ghost images of everything on the screen. Your eyes perceive this as blur. It's actually slower than the original Switch 1 LCD from 2017. This is what surprised me the most, because the nature of modern LCDs, I'm genuinely confused as to how this is the case. It shouldn't be that much worse, but it is. And as a result, it means that 2D games especially, or anything with a lot of lateral motion, just kind of smears in a messy way.
Oh, here we go. There it is, ladies and gentlemen. Now we're going to see the utmost amount of salty, grown adult men angry at the fact that the Switch 2 LCD is objectively worse than the 2017 model of the Switch 1. We're not talking about color reproduction. We're not talking about HDR. We're talking about how it works in lateral motion. And that's going to be proven directly from Nintendo's own fanboys in this video, which is going to be the best self-own you've actually ever seen. Now, in the video, John Linneman talked about filming at 240 FPS. They wanted to do that to show you what actually happened. However, though, apparently nobody's ever heard of variable refresh rates, FreeSync, VSync, or even how things operate on a monitor or even an LCD or OLED panel, because fanboys had to say something stupid like this. The real Dr. Trey, what it do, bruh? Talk of the town. LOL, they expected a 720p screen with no HDR and got a 1080p screen with HDR and VRR and 120 FPS support, but now it's subpar, quote unquote. Dr. Trey, I don't know how you're going around getting almost 4,000 likes and 350,000 views on this tweet. The article that My Nintendo News in fact pulled up was from a website called Blurbusters, and in fact Blurbusters is notoriously correct in trying to figure out how to properly maintain and get a clear image on your monitors directly for PC gaming. In fact, I'm not the only one that called this out. You see, John Linneman found your tweet as well. And he said this site actually measured it, and it's even worse than we suggested. It's one of the lowest modern LCDs I've ever seen. If you're someone that only looks at specs on the box and doesn't understand anything about displays, then you might be impressed. Oh boy, look, listen, I've never seen John Linneman cook anybody like that on Twitter before, but the roasting that my man has pulled out on you, Dr. Trey, truly is the best. Why is it completely incapable of Nintendo fanboys to actually provide proper criticism to Nintendo directly? Yeah, sure, you might have gotten a higher resolution screen for the Switch 2, or even had the ability for VRR and 120 FPS, but the problem is when it's trying to run that screen at that refresh rate, it doesn't do it correctly. It's not powered enough by what it needs to do. And the screen itself, in the way it perceives motion, is in fact worse than what you have in the 2017 model of the Switch. An 8-year-old device has a better screen, not in terms of resolution or HDR or frame rate, but in terms of how it perceives motion for your eye. And that's the problem you clowns are not understanding. Like John said, you can look at a spec sheet and think it's good, but when you see it in motion, that's when things begin to fall apart. And apparently, people tried to prove John Linneman wrong and gave themselves the biggest self-own you could absolutely imagine. You see, because Forever Sandorian said this: display is great. I love it. It's a huge upgrade over the original Switch. This only matters of you nitpicking at everything. Most people will immediately notice how nice the games look and run on the big 8-inch screen. You know what's great about this tweet, even though it got 6,000 views and 145 likes, is that he put a video of himself playing the Switch 2. Why not we watch the video together and see if there's in fact any ghosting, and if you folks at home can catch it as well. You know what's great? I didn't even have to try. Let's take one quick freeze frame of that video from our boy over here and see what we get on screen. Oh, would you look at that? Actual ghosting, not even taken from a camera at 240 FPS. Taken at 60 FPS on a compressed video from Twitter, by the way, and I can easily point out exactly where the image in fact ghosts directly on your own content. How you get exposed like this so quickly truly goes to show none of you clowns know what you're talking about. Again, we're talking about lateral movement in game. We're not talking about a big 8-inch screen. We're not talking about 1080p. We're not talking about 120 hertz. We're talking about how the actual image ghosts during actual movement as you pan the camera. In fact, there is the ghosting on the Shrine and on Link himself. I can't make it any clearer from your own video that you decided to upload because you felt you had a point to prove against Digital Foundry. Now, granted, I'm not a big Digital Foundry fan myself, and the thing is, I want to make this very clear. I've been critical of them in multiple times, but the thing is, when they're right about something, they're right about something. They're not always right, though. Just be cautious of that. I mean, the fact that they even took that Nintendo Switch sponsor video really goes to show that you can't say that they're paid by other companies. They literally got paid by Nintendo to do that sponsorship video. And that's the part that's so incredibly comedic about all of this. Nintendo fanboys do not understand what is being said. All they're doing is must defend Nintendo, must defend corporation, must do everything to defend Nintendo because they're my favorite. But you know what? It still continues though. Because Spring, the Nintendo goof, replied to John Linneman's Digital Foundry tweet saying this: literally no one would ever notice this if it was specifically tested for and then pointed out. Not a real issue. This is the most ridiculous response I have seen in a very long time. This is exactly like the people who say, well, you don't really see the frame rate dip. It's not really a real issue. You'll only notice it when it's pointed out to you. Oh, you dropped from 60 FPS to 45 FPS? It's not a real issue. It's only going to be noticed to you when you point it out. This is the same kind of response people have said for a very long time about the human eye can't see past 30 FPS. That's how this idiocy gets to go around and just be spread by everyone consistently all the time. You can literally see it in the video they showed. You can literally see it in the device when you have it in your hands. You can see it consistently as you pan back and forth through pixels. It's so obvious to everyone who has the device physically, and they can see it directly every single time. But yet you are the same kind of person whose profile says this: Christian, software engineer, Nintendo shill, and veteran. And if you couldn't get any better, it looks like, my boy, you've already known who I am because you've already pre-blocked me. Oh, you gotta love it. You gotta love it. Listen, mass is on Sundays, church is in session, because right now the shilling is gonna end, my boy. But it continues because Juice Man Vaughn tweeted this out. Not disagreeing with Digital Foundry here, but what they don't put into context is that for 95% of general consumers, the Switch 2 display is fine, especially if they're coming from the OG or V2. For some, the issues they're touching on is imperceptible. Again, actual lying to defend the corporation. The screen for the Switch 2 is literally worse than the OG and the V2. So you're literally going around and spreading actual misinformation and FUD. All that stuff you guys talked about for so long. Oh, you guys are spreading misinfo about the game key cards. It's not fair to Nintendo. Yet here you are doing everything to try and downplay this directly. Nintendo skimped out on the LCD. Just say they did. You'll have more respect as a person and as a fanboy on this hellscape of a website known as Twitter.com if you just did that directly. And the fact that you are consistently going around and defending this corporation, this is now the third time you've ended up in this kind of content, by the way. Yes, I'm keeping track. Yes, we're keeping score. And right now you are 0-3, my boy. But the consistent behavior of saying things like it's imperceptible is completely incorrect. It's imperceptible if you're blind. You're the same kind of person who will say something stupid like FPS between 60 and 120 is imperceptible. 30 FPS and 60 FPS is imperceptible to the human eye. 95% of people don't really care about 60 FPS, bro. So why even care about it? You know why they should care about it? You know why people should be mad about this? Because you're spending your hard-earned money on a device that you are being given to that is worse than what you were expecting to get. You were told all these specs, yet the screen itself in actual movement does not do the thing it's supposed to do. Capone Tone Tony says this: I respect Digital Foundry for what they do, but I swear they just point out every little microscopic flaw of a game or product just for losers to take their clips out of context to fuel console wars. Here's the best part about these kind of responses that we see consistently. They're half-truths is really what they are. Does Digital Foundry go ahead and choose every little microscopic flaw in a game or product? Yes, but the thing is, that's their job. They're called Digital Foundry. Their job is to go through and with a fine-tooth comb inspect the game or the piece of hardware that you're trying to figure out. That's like telling Gamers Nexus not to do a 45-minute to an hour breakdown on a GPU and spend the first 25 minutes talking about how much power it takes, how much heat is dissipated, or what the acoustics are like on the GPU itself, or if there's coil whine. That's a stupid thing to say. It is literally their job to do those things, to go through and find all the issues in the game, when the frame dips occur, when the resolution drops to an unacceptable degree, how bad the shadows look or how good they look, or what kind of actual motion blur is being applied into the game. And the only good motion blur is motion blur that is in fact turned off. Now the other part of this little tweet here, trying to go ahead and scrub everything away that you're trying to do, Tony, is the fact that you're saying that people use it for console wars. They in fact do. Yes. people do use Digital Foundry for console wars. That doesn't negate the validity of what Digital Foundry is in fact doing as their job to provide you the proper information of a product that you spent $500 on that has a worse screen than the original Switch from 2017. That's the issue. You should be aware of these things as a consumer and a customer. You should know, hey, Nintendo, you gotta send out a patch. You gotta fix this. Do something, get a firmware update to get this screen where it's supposed to be. Instead, you're too busy trying to brush things aside, lick the boot that you always tend to do, and never just provide any proper accountability for this company. Just like every other fanboy who doesn't want to provide proper accountability to the company that they want to suckle off on. Yet here you are doing it for Nintendo directly. You're trying to blame Digital Foundry for their actual job and what's supposed to be done, rather than going around and just being critical of the device that you purchased or the company that you enjoy. The fact that people like you are around doing this is exactly why we have $80 video games. Is exactly why you're paying for online. It's exactly why you're paying more money for this version of the Switch than you should be with a worse LCD screen. That's the problem. How you can't grasp that is wild to me. Bad_latency replied to that tweet by Digital Foundry saying this: 1080p 120 Hz is better than 720p OLED. Do I wish it was 1080p 120 OLED? Sure, but to call it a disappointment compared to the Switch 1 OLED is wild. Again, people who either don't know how to read or cannot listen to a 1-minute clip of what was actually being said. It's not the resolution. It's not the frame rate. It's not the variable refresh rate. The problem is that the way the screen is designed and the way the screen is built, it is causing a massive amount of ghosting in lateral movement when you move side to side or up and down. That's where the ghosting occurs. It's not about the resolution. It's not about LCD or OLED. The problem is the screen itself is not designed to do that correctly, and that is why it is worse than the original Switch 1. You guys are so entrenched trying to defend this piece of plastic that you know is not where it's supposed to be. You know everything around the periphery with it is not good. Yet you're sitting here doing whatever you can to defend this. The reason why it's a disappointment is because even compared to the OG Switch 1 LCD, it runs worse. That's the problem, especially on side-scrolling games or just going through the menus. That is the issue. This problem should not have been there in the first place. That is a huge issue with this device. Not only just that, but everything else around it as well. Yet you clowns only look at spec sheets, like John Linneman said earlier, and you think that's going to be enough. It's like how every single person will buy a brand new monitor and they think 1 millisecond response time, sure, but not know anything about the gray to gray or what the HDR nits are or anything like that and think they're getting a great deal. That's the issue with all of this. You guys are only looking at what's on the box and you think you got a great product when in reality, when it's tested by Digital Foundry, to which, by the way, you could say, hey, they could be wrong, but when you have actual evidence by other third-party websites like Blurbusters and etc. doing those same exact tests, showing you it is worse, it is not just Digital Foundry, it is a direct issue of this console specifically. But you know what? That wasn't enough. Let's see somebody else try to prove DF wrong again, and also give themselves the owning of a lifetime. William Short quote tweeted Digital Foundry saying this: I really don't have a ghosting problem. Now, William went ahead and quote tweeted that tweet from Digital Foundry with his own video as well of the main menu of his Switch 2. And remember how John Linneman said that the way the screen handles lateral movement, you will see 4 images of each pixel, thereby causing ghosting. Let's see what William had to show and say. And will we catch exactly what John Linneman was talking about? Spoiler, it's gonna be funny.
So you might wonder what I'm doing. Digital Foundry said there's a ghosting problem on the Switch, and this is my display. I don't see the problem here. I don't see the ghosting problem here. It's running pretty smooth on my end, you know. It is what it is, but you know, I may be a dense dummy. And you know what? About to see what it's all about. And you know what? It may look like, because even on my end, I don't see a ghosting problem. It looks pretty smooth. And you know what? It's looking like it's ghosting on my phone. more than it is like on the actual console unit. So it might be how Digital Foundry has their cameras put up. So I'll call horse crap regardless.
He was so close. He was so close while doing that. Oh, you know what it could be? It could be that my phone is catching the ghosting, but not my human eye. So you know what? More than likely, it's ghosting because of my phone, and that's why Digital Foundry is wrong, because it has to be their cameras catching it. No, my boy, because we're going to go ahead and catch your own video. We're going to show you the ghosting right here firsthand. Kapow! Kapow! Look at that! Boom! Look, it can't get any better. It is literally ghosting in front of you from your own footage in your own content, and you are refusing to believe it as you are sitting there trying to go ahead and cope yourself live in your own video saying, I see it on the phone, but I don't see it in person, so it's got to be okay, right, guys? Nintendo wouldn't lie to me. They wouldn't lie to us. There's no way this would ever happen. Look, my boy, you can cope yourself however you want, Will, but the thing is, the true fact is, it is actually ghosting in front of you, and there's no other way around it, bro. You posted the evidence. You made the video. We just took a freeze frame capture when you had motion on screen, and look at that. It's lateral movement right there. It's so easy. It's so easy. I just don't get it. Just give Nintendo the accountability they deserve. You paid your hard-earned money for this device, yet for some reason, you're giving them a pass. Don't. This is just as bad when people buy an NVIDIA GPU and they don't hold NVIDIA accountable for the money they spent and the lack of performance they're getting for the price that they paid. Stop. Oh God, I'm going to have an aneurysm. Look, the more things come out about the Switch 2, the more it cements to me that number one, this product was in fact absolutely rushed. Number two, Nintendo skipped out on quite a bit to focus more on profits than they actually do on quality of their device. And that is a huge issue for me. And number three, all of the other garbage surrounding this console specifically. Not the price of it directly, but again, the LCD being worse than the 2017 Switch. The fact that they are charging $80 for games, the fact that game key cards exist and you don't have actual physical cartridges that you have for your physical games that you want to purchase. And then on top of that, not giving publishers and developers different choices for those game key cards so you could have those physical games directly without needing to be online. Locking away online content depending upon the console that you buy, such as the GameCube emulation, which we all know if my phone can emulate GameCube games, I'm sure the Switch 1 can emulate GameCube games too. And just everything we've seen over and over, nickel and diming, doing everything people possibly can to defend this directly. I get Nintendo hits the actual nostalgia parts of your brain. I do. I got that with my PS1 and PS2 games as well, and even my N64, and there's even Switch games that I actually enjoy on my Switch 1, like Xenoblade Chronicles and etc. But that doesn't mean, and you don't hold Nintendo accountable for giving you a product that is literally and factually worse than what you purchased 8 years ago in terms of the actual screen. Stop looking at spec sheets. Look at what's happening to you in front of your face right now. And the reason why I'm making this video and why I'm so angry isn't because I hate Nintendo, because everybody says it to me about PlayStation. Oh, Alex, you just hate PlayStation. No, it's because I loved these products when I was growing up and these companies as I was growing up. And right now they have become exactly what I couldn't stand back then and what they're doing right now against the consumer and customer. Hold these companies accountable. Take the boot out of your mouth. The taste of leather should not be there in the first place. But you know what? Instead, don't. Continue to be fanboys. Continue to defend these companies and corporations as you always tend to do, because I will be here to make fun of you consistently and endlessly because of it. The fact that you clowns went through and owned your own selves in your own arguments while trying to prove Digital Foundry wrong at that moment in time truly is the funniest thing to see. And the fact that DF has been wrong about things before and you had a great opportunity to do so and you chose not to actually hold Nintendo accountable and do the opposite thing really goes to show exactly the kind of consumer you are. Exactly what Nintendo wants. A mindless drone sheep willing to have their wallets goat-seed on a consistent basis. You want to talk about gaming today is so shitty? You're the reason why. Congrats. Way to go ahead and be a pay pig for nothing, you clowns. But you know what? As always, if you liked today's video, thank you. And if you didn't like it, fuck you. If you want to see more of this kind of content, more PC port reviews, gaming news, Steam Deck videos, fanboy content like this, my hot takes in the gaming industry, and more, subscribe to the channel. We're on our way to 85,000 subs, and I just want to say thank you guys so very much. If you want Discord access or remote during live streams, become a YouTube member. It's as low as $1. If you don't want to spend the buck, don't sweat it. Saturday nights, 8:45 p.m. Eastern, right here on this channel. Trust me, you don't want to miss it. With all that being said, though, thank you guys so much for watching. Hope you have a great one, and I'll see you gooners next time. Peace!
It's time to stop. It's time to stop. Okay? No more. Where the fuck are your parents? It's time to stop. It's time to stop. Okay? No more. Where the fuck are your parents? You need to stop everything. What are you doing with your life? This is not okay. This needs to stop now. This is cancer. It's time to stop. It's time to stop, okay? No more. Where the fuck are your parents? It's time to stop. It's time to stop, okay? No more. Where the fuck are your parents? Just stop. Just stop. Stop. No. Just stop. You're a fucking idiot. It's time to stop. It's time to stop, okay? No more. Where the fuck are your parents? It's time to stop. It's time to stop, okay? No more. Where the fuck are your parents? You need to stop everything. What are you doing with your life? This is not okay. This needs to stop now. This is cancer.